Hi, sports fans. We're back. Yes, it is Friday. I'm trying to wrap up this here table and get this done for you. And when you guys take a look at this, of course, you're going to do a better job with sanding, cleaning, and all the other things that go along with it. I'm just trying to give you the basis on things that you could do and then move ahead. So if you get to a certain point, you come back here, your project has been polyurethane, you can lay out where your dados are going to go, things that we had covered in previous lessons. Remember, in all these lessons though, don't attempt to do this at home. Only do it with a trained professional. Supervising by a trained professional is the way you're going to do this. Here's what we're going to do. Today we're going to take this table, hopefully attach a top. We're going to take the legs since we put it together the last time on Thursday. We're going to put these plugs in, finish the table up, and see if we can get it ready to be finished. Here's the way we're going to do this. The first thing we're going to take care of is the details of these plugs. If you look, the unsightly hole that we have here was made by counterboring with a 3/8 drill bit into here so that we could hide the screw. To do that, we're going to hide it with the plugs that we cut. Yesterday, when you took a look at this video, I mentioned to you that I was going to cut out 10 plugs. Well, I cut one before you guys left, and I cut the other ones when you weren't here. What I wanted to show you was the second one that I drilled out that I cut. You'll notice something happened to that. I went faster than I normally would. The first one, I took my time and went nice and slow, came out nice and clean, but the second one kind of popped out on its own. The faster you go down, the more rough these edges are, and it's not going to be nearly as clean as if you were to take your time. So when you do this, always make sure that you're taking your time when you're drilling your plugs out. Go slower, and to avoid this situation, like I said, you could drill out a couple more just in case the situation happens. Today, what we'll do is we'll put the plug in, see if we can do it the right way, and see if this acts as a reminder to what you did way back when you put your footstool together. To put those plugs in, of course, I'm going to use my wood glue that I have on the glue table. Three things I always ask you to get whenever you're putting plugs in is a bottle of glue, the crappiest piece of sandpaper you could find, and a screw. And of course I have a 2-inch screw here. It doesn't matter what size you use. This, when you think about it, mine is not finished. Mine is not sanded, it's not stained, it's not polyurethane, but realize that yours is all cleaned up, finished. The shelves are done, the legs are done. This is ready to be done. So I don't want to take glue and get glue all over the leg. So to prevent that from happening, as I did it before when I did the footstool, I'm just going to take a glob of glue, put it on a scrappy piece of sandpaper. I'm going to take my screw, as I showed you before, roll the head of the screw into the glue, which will pick up the one drop that you need. I place it directly over top of the hole, just wipe it, and then magically I have one drop of glue in the hole where I'm going to put my plug. Let's take a look at the plugs. We have a flat side of the plug. You have a chip side of the plug. When I pop this out, and I did this with my screwdriver, I'm going to take the screwdriver, put it in the plug, and pop it out. And when you notice, when you pop it out, the top side that I have is going to be cleaner than the bottom side that I chipped out. I always suggest you take the flat side, which is the good side that you're looking at, and I'm going to put that face down. When I put that face down, it allows the flat part of the screw to make contact with the flat part of the plug, and there's some glue in between. So I'm going to take the plug, place it right in here, and what I'm going to do is look at one important thing before I push this plug down. The most important part about putting a plug in is to make sure that the grain of this leg lines up with the grain of that plug. So if you look at it, to me, it looks like the grain of that plug lines up well with the grain of the leg. Hold on. Hold on. Oh, it's not even close. Wow. So I'm going to take the plug, I'm not going to push it down, I'm going to line this up as best I can. Now the grain of that plug lines up with that leg. Now I'm going to simply push that down. Sometimes you might have to take the back of the screwdriver and just tap it down. But the last thing that you want to do is to take a hammer and beat the daylights of this down, because that plug head will mushroom and it won't chip out nice and even exactly the way you want it to be. So I'm going to put that plug in. I'm going to do this for my 7 remaining holes. I'll do it the same exact way. I'm going to take the glue, place it on, wipe it off. There's my drop. This was the plug that came out before. Here's the chip side. Here's the flat side. Flat side goes down. Even though I have one pair of glasses, I think I'll be able to line this up pretty accurately. And that looks pretty accurate. Now I'm going to push that down so that my grain lines up with the grain of the leg. I'll do that on all my other pieces here. Up, up. It's funny because when you look at these videos, even though you're not at that step, and even though we're not going to meet in school, when you come back, if you want to figure out how to do all this stuff, you can use this as an easy reference, so you don't have to ask the bald teacher how to do it. All you have to do is pull it up on the video. And we will be back, folks, by the way. Just keep the faith. I know everything will be fine. What would I say, flat side down or chip side down? Oh, flat side, very good, excellent. Flat side down, grain lines up, I push it down. Very good. Of course, 4 more plugs to do, and of course, when you do this by hand, it takes forever. Up, up, up. The glue, as I said to you before, is a water-resistant glue. It's not waterproof, but if you get this glue on your clothes, it's not coming off. Actually, it'll come off, but it'll turn white. So unless you're wearing a white shirt or have white pants, if you wipe glue on there and you wash it, the glue comes off, but it'll leave a white stain. So what you always want to make sure you do is your hand shouldn't come in contact with this glue. When you're done, like I am, I'm just going to take this stuff and, believe it or not, clean up. Just throw it out.
You don't want to ruin your nice shirt.
No, I don't want to ruin my 5-day-old shirt. I'm sorry, 1-day-old shirt. Bop, 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 bop. Last one, chip side down. Oh yeah, chip side down. No, flat side down. Flat side down and grain lines up. I'll tap it down a little bit. All set. Now I'm going to go back to this original leg that I plugged. If you look at this, you notice that this plug is raised, this plug is raised. So now what I want to do is I want to chisel them down, get it even so we don't even notice that there's a plug in there. To do that, you're going to use a chisel. The chisel that I like are the wider chisels. This happens to be a 3/4 inch wide chisel. I don't like the narrow chisels. The narrow chisels on something like this, I want this thing to completely cut across the entire surface. So as I have shown you before, the secret to not chipping out a plug is to make sure that you don't go in too hard, too fast, and too much at an angle. To prevent that from happening, I take the chisel, I'm going to invert it, the beveled side is now down. I'm going to get out a hammer or mallet, doesn't matter what you use. I'm going to lay the chisel down on that surface of the leg, and what I'm going to do is rock it up about 1/8 of an inch. So right now it's flush. I'm going to rock it up about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to hit it one time with authority. Ha! And if I do that, you will notice that that plug is evenly chipped out, but it's still raised up a bit. Now you have a choice. You could either play like you're Michelangelo and tap a little bit, or what you can do is take the chisel, flip it around so that the bevel side is now face up. And as I like to do it, lay this on here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the chisel back from side to side, like I'm slicing a piece of American cheese at a fine Italian deli. How much would you like, 1/4 pound? What I'm gonna do is chisel that even so it feels like it's raised up maybe just a hair. I'll take a walk over to the old abrasive paper box. And the thing that's tricky about yours, that's not tricky about mine, is that your finish is already on these legs. So with this just raised up a little bit, I could use a piece of 400 grit or a piece of 220 grit. All I want to do is touch that as little as I possibly can, touch it with a little 400, and I'm done with that. I'm going to do the same thing to all 7 of these plugs that are left. The secret is not to chip the leg out if it's been pre-finished. So we're kind of rolling the dice here. When you think about it, we could have left everything unfinished, put the plugs in, and now go back and stain this, polyurethane it, which would mean that you're going to have to stain the inside, stain the outside, stain the edge, do the underside, the top side. To me, it's so much easier to pre-finish things because if it's pre-finished, all you have to do is put it together and I only have to worry about that little plug. And so I'm rolling the dice here thinking I could do that without chiseling. If you guys get it close, if you're able to do that, I will gladly come over here and clean this up for you. It's one of the, I'm going to say the 3 favorite things that I love to do in my life. As soon as I make that nice and even, it's easy to go, and this thing really rolls pretty quick. Up, up.
What are your 2 other things?
I'm not going to get into that right now. Bop, bop. I don't want anybody prying into my home life. Yeah, that's right. I know where you're headed. Yep. The other thing when I chisel this out, I remember my shop teacher showing me I should never do this because if you slip like that, you get that. That's absolutely true. So your hand should always be in back of the chisel. If you look when I chisel this down, if I do it by hand, my hands are in back of the chisel, they're never in front. I always do invert it, tap it, invert it, lift it, tap it, boom, boom. And if you look at where my hand is positioned, my hand is underneath that leg. So even if I slip, it doesn't go anywhere near my hand. Slice, 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 away we go. I have one more leg to do. And then I could start on my top. My top. It's important that you figure out the correct size of your top. If you look at my shelves are not a perfect square. They are actually a rectangle. My shelves happen to be 9 inches wide, 11 inches long. So my top, if I extend 1 inch over on this side, this side, this side, and this side, the actual size of my top with the overhang should be greater than 9 by 11. It should really be 10 by 12. No, that's what every jackass does. It should be 9. It should be 11 by 13. That way I've allowed an inch, an inch, an inch, an inch. 2 inches on the length, 2 inches on the width. Guess what I happen to have here? You're never going to believe it. But a piece of wood that's exactly 11 inches wide, 13 inches long. How do you like that? And guess what part I'm going to use that for? I'm going to use it for my top. Before I use it for my top, you have to make a decision. I did cut this to the size, but I did not, when I was putting this thing together, sand this at all. So what I want to do is, I actually want to decide what do I want the top to look like. Right now it is unrouted, so it has that sharp edge, so that I want to get rid of. And as we talked about before, you have several ways you could deal with that. I could either go to the router table, break an edge. If I wanted to, I could set the profile a little bit greater and round it over. Or what I could do is I could bullnose it. I could round it over on the top, round it over to the bottom, and that's the nice touchable one. I'm going to choose something different. I'm going to do something that most people don't do with that router table, and that is I'm gonna round this over, but I'm gonna put a lip, a little accent lip on the top side, simply by setting the router bit a little bit deeper. So why don't you come with me? We'll go over to the router table and we'll start to route the top and see if we can make this look a little bit better. Come on, walk this way. This way, walk this way. This is good. This way, walk this way. Good, good, very good. Most everyone has used a router table in here. It's such a time saver because it's not the handheld router where we have to set up clamps and move the clamps every 2 minutes. It allows you to route the top of something, the edge of something, the legs of something, and you could simply use this very similar to the table saw, the same exact way. Put the piece of wood up against the fence, you could send it in and you can make the cut. The point that I want to make, and this was a question on your midterm exam, is that when I am routing all 4 sides, I am routing an end, an edge, and an edge. There is a sequence that you want to use to make sure it gets routed successfully and as clean as possible. And here's the way to do this. Whenever you're routing all 4 sides, you always want to do the 2 ends first. The reason, the grain is running in this direction. The cutter is cutting in this direction. So when I get to the very end here, that cutter is going to chip off this edge. If I do the same thing on this side, it's going to chip it off over here. But the good news is that when we go over the edges, it's going to clean those chips up. So what we always want to do is do the 2 ends first and then the edges afterwards. And hopefully that's going to give us a nice clean cut. I already set the router bit to the depth that I want it to be. This board has been ready. It's squared up. I squared an end and cut it to length on the table saw. I jointed the edge and ripped it to width on the table saw as well. So now I'm going to cut. I want to decide which surface do I want to see as my top. This one definitely looks like the best surface. So I'm going to have that face down and I'm going to cut as I go across here the same way I would do it on the table saw. Sleeves rolled up, exposing my massive pipes. Safety glasses on. I don't need 2 pairs of safety glasses because I'm doing something that doesn't require a really fine eye. And then the last thing is my hands. Where should my hands be positioned? Left hand is going to hold the stock up against the fence. My right thumb is going to be on the back edge of the board when I'm routing this with my fingertips up. The other thing to keep in mind is that that router bit, if I put anything up against here, it's going to cut. So I want to take my hand and make sure it's away from that fence. I'm going to keep it at a safe distance away from the fence. Here we go. I'm going to turn the router table on and we'll do the ends first and then we'll do the edges and then we'll see how good it looks. I always, by a matter of habit, hold this off, turn it on, and I'm all set. Right thumb, finger, and I'm just going to simply push down on this as I go up there. So there's my cut, and if you notice, this is my shape, and it's different than what most people look at. Here's the chip that I talked about. When I go back over the edge, hopefully it's going to clean it up. I'm also going to make one other pass just to make sure I push this far enough in. So that sounded good. I'm now going to move on to my other end, which is over here. Same way, I'm going to make the same pass. Struggles with end grain, I'm just going to cut it again. Again, push it in as far as it'll go. There's the chip I was talking about, and now we'll do the edges. Somebody smart is going to ask me, I see you only did the edges one time. Why is that? Because the router bit has an easier time cleaning up edges than it does ends. So if you look at this, this has now been cleaned up. It's been routed, my ends are done, and my edges are done. Now I'm all set to get ready to mount this onto the table. So let's take a walk back over to where my table is, and we'll see how well this fits. If you remember from the last lesson, we have tape on my shelves. So I'm going to take this, see what this looks like by positioning positioning it down on the floor. And now I'm going to take my tabletop, lay this on here. I'll center this. I just want to see what it looks like. God bless America. Another winner. That looks pretty darn good. I really like the way that looks. So now the question is, how do I attach this top to that table? Let me see. Maybe some, oh no, I can't spit because of the COVID-19. Let's see. Anybody have any chewing gum? Maybe we could use a piece of chewing gum? No.
You can't with the COVID.
No. Oh yeah, that's germs. I got an idea. How about these little dowel pins? How about if we take this tabletop, we drill holes into the legs, stick the dowel pin in the leg, have it stick up, and then drill holes on the underside of the top. I think that's a capital idea. So here's what we'll do. We're going to figure out the best way that we can do this, drilling these holes and placing these dowel pins. Wouldn't you know it, that the way we're going to do this is by using the old drill with the keyless chuck that we talked about days ago. And we're going to use this 3/8 bit like we used on the drill press. This would be too awkward to work on the drill press. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use the drill, something that's called the self-centering doweling jig. The self-centering doweling jig, to make sure that our dowel pin is nice and centered. And then we'll drill the hole, put some glue in there, drill holes on the underside of the top, and then we can attach it, clamp it up, and then our project will be done. What's your key question today? How do I route? The correct answer would be ends first, edges second, when I'm routing all 4 sides. If I'm only routing 3 sides, you do the ends, and then I do the one edge. If you're making a box, that's how it usually goes. The box, we usually don't route the back edge of the box unless you're Joe Yambao. Okay. Any questions? It looks like we're about done for today. I don't want to squeeze in the top right now. We'll probably take that with our next lesson on attaching the top, and then that table will finally be done. Again, you guys stay safe. You have a great weekend because today is Friday. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to wash this 5-day-old smelly shirt, although I like the deodorant. Okay? Any questions? You give me an email. Adios.